Patient Zero, Chapter 1. In early 1982, an outbreak of a mysterious virus begins in a small, remote fishing village in Tawi-Tawi, an archipelago in the southern Philippines. The virus, which begins as a flu-like illness, rapidly spreads to nearby communities. The outbreak starts with a fisherman who shows strange behavioral changes, followed by violent aggression and cannibalistic tendencies. Over a few weeks, the infection spreads via bites, becoming a highly contagious, zombie-like pathogen. Initial political reaction. In 1983, the Philippine government, under President Ferdinand Marcos, who is still in power after his martial law period, initially dismisses the reports as exaggerated rumors from the provincial areas. However, as more villages are overtaken by the undead, the government begins to panic. President Marcos begins to issue emergency proclamations, but his authority is increasingly questioned as local leaders and communities become desperate. The virus spread to Metro Manila and the military response. By mid-1984, the virus has spread across the southern islands, reaching Cebu and Davao. The government tries to contain the outbreak by quarantining major urban centers, but by 1985, the virus reaches Metro Manila. The Philippine Army and National Guard are deployed to enforce curfews and prevent the spread, but the military is insufficiently equipped and poorly trained for this new kind of threat. At this point, hospitals are overwhelmed, with doctors and healthcare workers unprepared for the rapid rise in cases. The healthcare system collapses under the pressure of the pandemic. Internal political crisis. The Philippine government faces increasing unrest, especially from civilian militias, as people begin to lose faith in the government's ability to handle the crisis. Marcos, facing mounting pressure, declares martial law once more to control the panic, but the power vacuum created by the growing number of infected undermines any authority he has left. Marcos, facing internal resistance, becomes more paranoid. Martial law now also involves military curfews and strict limitations on movement, though these actions mostly fail as desperate citizens find ways to survive on their own. 1985. The Horde emerges the first major military offensive, Operation Phoenix Dawn. By 1986, the virus has decimated large swaths of the Philippines. The government orders a large-scale offensive to push back the infected, named Operation Phoenix Dawn. The military adopts a strategy modeled after the Battle of Stalingrad, creating urban fortifications around Metro Manila. But the lack of resources, modern weapons, and tactical training leave them ineffective. The infected, led by Patient Zero, who has now become the leader of the Horde, are relentless and seem to exhibit military-like coordination. The hordes move in waves, overwhelming the military positions. Famous leaders failing. Ferdinand Marcos, despite his military background, fails to organize a coherent counteroffensive due to outdated tactics and the overwhelming nature of the zombie threat. Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile tries to rally the military, but the disintegration of order and rampant civilian panic makes his efforts unsuccessful. Corazon Aquino, rising as a symbol of resistance to the Marcos regime, is forced into hiding, unable to lead a coordinated government response. She tries to lead civilian resistance forces, but ultimately fails, as the infrastructure collapses and the fighting spreads further. 1987 to 1990. Collapse of order, civilian resistance, and guerrilla warfare. In 1987, with the government in disarray, guerrilla factions, such as the New People's Army, NPA, begin using unconventional tactics, including ambushes and traps, to survive the horde's onslaught. However, these factions are eventually overwhelmed. Large portions of Visayas and Mindanao are lost to the undead, and the Philippine military is forced to retreat into fortified positions along the Luzon Island. Failed external assistance. Philippines requests international aid. The United States, still deep in the Cold War, provides some limited military and medical assistance. However, their primary focus is on maintaining strategic military positions across the Pacific, and assistance arrives too late and is not sufficient to stop the spread of the virus. China offers a medical team, but it is clear that the virus is too widespread and the team is unable to contain it. 1990, the final stand. The Battle of Metro Manila. By 1990, Metro Manila is one of the last strongholds of the living. The military attempts one final operation, Operation Exodus, to secure a section of the city to prevent the spread of the horde. They use tactics learned from historical battles, positioning snipers, machine gun nests, and creating decoy barricades to lure zombies into kill zones. Despite these tactics, the sheer numbers of the undead make it impossible to succeed. As they close in, the remnants of the Filipino military, alongside civilian resistance, are forced to fall back to Baguio, the last potential safe zone.